On an unsuspecting Wednesday night, the FBI, with the assistance of Miami police, raided this waterfront mansion near Miami Shores, spooking neighbors. Neighbors say the residence is a short-term rental property. Arrested 20-year-old Malone Lamb and another 21-year-old in Los Angeles.
A group of young criminals with no hacking expertise just managed to steal $230 million in Bitcoin using clever social engineering tactics rather than sophisticated hacking. What shocking mistake led them to flaunt their stolen wealth, turning their lavish lifestyle into the very thing that exposed them? The heist of the century. On August 19, 2024, a group of young people carried out one of the biggest cryptocurrency thefts ever. They stole $230 million worth of Bitcoin from a Genesis creditor. The group included Malone Lamb, who was 20 years old, Veer Chettle, who was 18, John Dale Serrano, who was 21, and two others named Danish Khan and Chen. Their crimes shocked the world not because of advanced hacking, but because they used a clever trick to fool the victim. The group's plan was based on social engineering, a method where people are tricked into sharing private information. Instead of breaking into computers using coding skills, they focused on tricking the victim through fake phone calls. These calls pretended to be from trusted companies like Google Support and Gemini Exchange, which are linked to cryptocurrency platforms. This approach was smart and made their crime difficult to detect. The fake phone calls were carefully planned. The group used a tactic called spoofing to make their numbers look official. This made the victim believe the calls were real. During these calls, they talked politely and acted like they wanted to help the victim. Slowly, they gained the victim's trust, which allowed them to ask for sensitive security details without raising suspicion. Once they had the victim's trust, they moved to the next step. They convinced the victim to reset their two-factor authentication, a system designed to protect accounts with an extra layer of security. Normally, two-factor authentication makes accounts harder to hack because it requires both a password and a special code sent to the user's phone. However, the group used the information they had gained to reset the system and take control of the victim's account. The final part of their plan involved a tool called AnyDesk, a remote access software. They told the victim to install this tool, pretending it was needed to fix an account problem. Once the victim followed their instructions, the group gained full control of the victim's computer. This allowed them to access the Bitcoin wallet directly and see the private keys needed to transfer the cryptocurrency. With the private keys in hand, the group made their move. They transferred 4,064 Bitcoins worth $230 million into their own accounts. Cryptocurrency transactions are permanent and cannot be reversed. Once the money was moved, the victim had no way to get it back. This made the crime even more devastating. What surprised many people was the age of the criminals. Most of them were very young, with some still in their late teens. They were not expert hackers or professional criminals. Instead, they were clever and understood how to manipulate people. Their ability to plan and carry out such a massive crime at a young age shocked many experts. This crime highlighted a big problem with digital security. Even with strong technology like two-factor authentication, systems can fail if people are tricked into revealing their information. The incident showed that human error can be just as dangerous as technical flaws. It served as a reminder that protecting online accounts requires more than just good software. The heist also showed how tools like AnyDesk can be misused. AnyDesk is a legitimate tool that companies use for technical support. However, in the wrong hands, it becomes a dangerous weapon. The group used it to take control of the victim's computer without their knowledge. This proved how important it is for people to understand the tools they install and use. After the theft, the cryptocurrency world was in shock. Many people questioned how such a large amount of Bitcoin could be stolen so easily. It raised concerns about whether cryptocurrencies are truly safe and whether more needs to be done to protect users. The theft also made people realize the importance of educating users about potential scams. Law enforcement agencies around the world are now paying closer attention to crimes like this. Investigating cryptocurrency thefts is not easy because Bitcoin transactions are anonymous and hard to trace. This case showed that traditional investigation methods may not be enough to solve modern cybercrimes. Authorities will need new strategies to track down and stop criminals like these. The victim of the theft, whose name has not been revealed, likely had no idea they were being targeted. This is what makes social engineering so effective. It relies on trust and tricks people into making mistakes. Even people who are familiar with technology and security can fall for these scams, as this case shows. This theft is a wake-up call for everyone who uses digital systems, especially for managing money. It reminds us to be cautious and to question unexpected requests, even if they seem to come from trusted sources. Staying alert and careful is just as important as having good security tools. Could the thieves' elaborate plan of laundering millions in stolen Bitcoin truly remain hidden? Or would their careless mistakes be their undoing? Cleaning the heist. After the Bitcoin heist, the thieves quickly started hiding the stolen money. They knew that $230 million worth of Bitcoin would be hard to hide because all transactions are recorded on the blockchain. Their goal was to make the stolen funds untraceable, and they used many clever methods to cover their tracks. The first thing the thieves did was break the stolen Bitcoin into smaller amounts. They used a trick called peel chains. This method involves sending Bitcoin to one wallet and then peeling off small amounts to send to other wallets. They repeated this process many times, creating a long chain of transactions. By dividing the money this way, they made it harder for anyone to follow the trail of stolen Bitcoin. Next, the group moved the Bitcoin through multiple cryptocurrency exchanges. These platforms are where people trade different types of digital money. The thieves used at least 15 exchanges to send the stolen Bitcoin to other accounts. This made the money trail even more confusing because the transactions looked like regular trading activity. Using so many exchanges also helped them mix the stolen money with other funds, making it less obvious. After moving the Bitcoin through exchanges, the thieves started converting it into other cryptocurrencies. They exchanged Bitcoin for Litecoin and Ethereum, which are also popular digital currencies. Some of the stolen money was converted into Monero, a cryptocurrency known for its strong privacy features. Monero transactions are very hard to track, so this was an important step in hiding the money. The process of laundering the stolen Bitcoin took several days. During this time, the thieves were very active, constantly moving the money from one place to another. They wanted to stay ahead of investigators and avoid leaving clear patterns. Their strategy was to create a web of transactions so complicated that tracing the money would take a lot of time and effort. Laundering stolen cryptocurrency is not just about hiding the money, it's also about making it usable. Many stolen cryptocurrencies are flagged as suspicious and cannot be easily spent or exchanged. To solve this, criminals often use mixers, which combine different transactions to make the money appear clean. It is likely that the thieves use such services to make their Bitcoin harder to trace. However, mixers are increasingly monitored by authorities, adding risk for anyone using them. The laundering process shows how criminals take advantage of the strengths and weaknesses of cryptocurrencies. On one hand, blockchain technology is transparent, making all transactions visible. On the other hand, some cryptocurrencies and tools offer privacy features that make hiding money easier. The group's actions highlighted how both aspects of cryptocurrency can be used in crimes. Cryptocurrency transactions happen across the globe, involving many different countries and platforms. Some exchanges have strict security rules, but others do not. The thieves likely chose exchanges with weaker rules to avoid detection. Even so, international cooperation between law enforcement agencies is improving, making it harder for criminals to stay hidden. The complexity of the laundering process also showed how much effort the thieves put into hiding their tracks. They understood the cryptocurrency system well and used its features to their advantage. However, their mistakes, such as reusing addresses and leaking personal details, gave investigators the clues they needed to start uncovering the trail. The group's attempt to clean the stolen Bitcoin was a mix of careful planning and costly errors. It was a race against time as they tried to hide the money while law enforcement worked to track them down. Could Malone's reckless flaunting of his stolen fortune be the key mistake that led authorities straight to him? The extravagant life of Malone Lamb. Malone Lamb, one of the main figures behind the massive Bitcoin heist, quickly became known for his lavish spending. After the heist, he wasted no time in living a life of luxury. He enjoyed every moment of his wealth, often spending huge amounts of money on things that others could only dream of. Living in Los Angeles, Malone made sure everyone knew he had made it big. One of the first things Malone did after getting the stolen Bitcoin was to hit up high-end nightclubs. He didn't just go to any club, but the most exclusive ones in the city. At these clubs, he would spend tens of thousands of dollars on elite services, sometimes even exceeding $500,000 in a single night. People in the clubs quickly learned his name, and staff would often give him special shout-outs. For Malone, the club scene was more than just a place to party. It was a way to show off his wealth and enjoy the attention that came with it. His spending didn't stop at nightclubs. Malone also became obsessed with luxury cars. He bought several high-end vehicles, including Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and Rolls-Royces. Each car was a symbol of his wealth and success. Whether driving around Los Angeles or cruising down the streets of Miami, Malone's collection of cars made it clear that he was living in the fast lane. He chose the most exclusive models, ensuring that everyone would know he had money to burn. In addition to his flashy cars, Malone bought a mansion in Miami for $11 million. The house was massive, with spacious rooms, expensive furniture, and everything someone could want in a luxury property. The mansion became his new home, a place where he could relax and enjoy the good life. It was more than just a place to live. It was a symbol of his success after the heist. With a property like that, Malone could continue to show off his wealth and live in complete comfort. Fashion was another area where Malone spent freely. He had a taste for expensive designer clothes, often wearing expensive brands. One of his most famous purchases was a $15,000 Moncler Maya 70 jacket. It wasn't just about staying fashionable for Malone. His clothing was a way to make a statement. By wearing these designer items, he showed everyone around him that he was someone important, someone who had made it to the top. Despite all the flashy spending, Malone also liked to give gifts to others. One of his favorite things to do was to hand out Birkin bags, which cost tens of thousands of dollars each. He often gave them to women at clubs as a way to show his generosity. While it made him popular in those circles, it was also a way for him to continue showing off his wealth. By giving away such expensive gifts, Malone kept his name in the spotlight and continued to enjoy the attention it brought him. But as much as Malone enjoyed his lavish lifestyle, it started to draw attention from the wrong people. His constant spending and flashy displays of wealth made it easier for authorities to track his activities. His name was becoming well known, and his every move seemed to be watched. The more he flaunted his wealth, the easier it was for law enforcement to connect the dots and start looking into his past. What he had hoped would remain hidden, his involvement in the heist, was starting to come into the light. Malone's love for the good life didn't stop at nightclubs, cars, and clothes. He kept searching for new ways to spend his money, constantly upgrading his lifestyle. But with every lavish purchase, he made it harder for himself to stay hidden. The more attention he received, the easier it became for law enforcement to piece together his story and track down the stolen Bitcoin. His flashy lifestyle had become his downfall, making it nearly impossible to avoid being caught. Malone Lamb's story is a clear example of how a life of excess can quickly spiral out of control. His over-the-top spending not only marked his rise to fame, but also made it easier for authorities to find him. By indulging in luxury and constantly flaunting his wealth, Malone made sure that his involvement in the Bitcoin heist was never too far from anyone's mind. His reckless lifestyle, driven by the need to be admired, ultimately led to his downfall. Malone Lamb's extravagant spending, once the symbol of his newfound wealth, quickly became the very thing that unraveled his criminal empire, leading authorities right to his doorstep and into the heart of his opulent downfall. From luxury to loss. By mid-September 2024, the story of Malone Lamb and his crew took a dramatic turn. After weeks of investigation, law enforcement had gathered enough evidence to arrest Malone, the mastermind behind the massive cryptocurrency heist. His life of luxury, built on stolen Bitcoin, was about to come crashing down. The police raided his Miami mansion, where he had been living in lavish style. The once beautiful mansion, filled with expensive furniture, designer clothes, and luxury cars, was now a crime scene. Malone was arrested, and his world of stolen wealth was over. The authorities didn't stop there. They moved quickly to recover some of the stolen funds. They managed to freeze over $9 million worth of Bitcoin, but this was only part of the stolen money. Most of the Bitcoin had been moved around and exchanged through different wallets, making it harder to track. Still, the police were determined to find as much of the stolen money as possible. They knew that every bit they recovered would bring them closer to justice. In addition to freezing the Bitcoin, the authorities seized the luxury items that Malone had bought with the stolen money. The cars, now seized by law enforcement, would be sold at auction to help pay back the victim of the heist. However, not all of the seized items would sell for what they were worth. Some of the cars had been damaged because of Malone's reckless driving. The designer clothes, which Malone had worn to show off his wealth, were now worn and not as valuable as when they were new. Still, every item that was seized was an important step toward recovering the stolen funds. Despite their careful planning, the thieves made some mistakes. One error was reusing deposit addresses. These are unique codes used to receive cryptocurrency in wallets. Using the same address more than once creates a link between transactions, making it easier for investigators to follow the money. This mistake gave law enforcement an important clue about the stolen funds. As the investigation continued, it became clear that Malone and his crew had made these big mistakes. They had shown off their stolen wealth too much. Their luxury cars, designer clothes, and wild parties had drawn attention. What they thought would help them stay hidden instead made it easier for the authorities to track them down. Each time they bought a new car or threw a big party, it was another clue that led the police closer to their door. The fall of Malone and his crew was inevitable. What had started as a thrilling heist quickly became a nightmare. They thought they could live a life of luxury forever, but in the end, their greed and carelessness led to their downfall. Their flashy lifestyle, once seen as a sign of success, now became the reason they were caught. As the authorities recovered the stolen funds and seized the luxury items, it was clear that their world was falling apart. The crew's criminal empire was crumbling, one item at a time. Even though some of the stolen Bitcoin had been recovered, much of it remained hidden. The crew had gone to great lengths to launder the stolen money, turning Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies and moving it through different wallets. Despite the difficulty, the authorities kept working hard to track down the remaining stolen funds. The job was far from over, but with each seizure and each auction, they were getting closer to bringing the crew to justice. The fall of Malone and his crew was a harsh lesson. Their greed, their desire to show off, and their reckless spending had led them straight to disaster. They thought they could hide behind their stolen wealth, but in the end, their extravagant lifestyle made them easy targets for law enforcement. The stolen Bitcoin, once fueling their wild ride, had now turned into evidence that would bring them to justice. As the investigation moved forward, the authorities continued to work tirelessly to recover as much as possible. Even though much of the stolen Bitcoin had been laundered and hidden, the law was closing in. For Malone and his crew, there was no escape. Their lavish lifestyle was gone, and they were left to face the consequences of their actions. What had once been a world of endless luxury had turned into a story of downfall and regret. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this story as captivating as it was revealing. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling content. Stay tuned for our next deep dive, and as always, thanks for being part of the journey.